Good evening, and thank you for joining us this evening for our 6th annual Women of Distinction Awards. I hope you've enjoyed seeing the photos earlier this evening and the biographies of all the wonderful women that are being recognized here tonight. We are sharing a link of the digital program in the chat to read more about each honoree. And now we're going to kick off the evening with the Girl Scout Troop 3001 of Roosevelt Island, who will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Our Girl Scouts this evening are Persia Perez, Louise Wang, Emily Elisa Zov, and Layla Cox. Thank you for joining us. I was once a Girl Scout, and it's great to see you this evening.
All good, ladies.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you to our wonderful Girl Scout Troop 3001 of Roosevelt Island for that outstanding pledge. You were a part of my swearing in back in 2014, and it's great to see you and how much you've each grown tonight and this evening. So thank you very much for joining us. I'm Assembly Member Rebecca Seawright, live streaming on Facebook from our York Avenue, East 79th Street office. I want to thank you, our women of distinction, their family, friends, and colleagues and neighbors for joining us in the honor of Women's History Month. Tonight, we honor the women of distinction from 2020 and 2021, as the event was canceled last year due to the pandemic. Memorial Sloan Kettering had graciously offered to host it last year, and we so appreciate their support. And you're in for a real treat later tonight with a keynote speech from Cynthia McCullen, the Vice President of MSK. New York has played a significant role in shaping the national agenda for women's rights. In fact, the first Women's Rights Convention took place in Seneca Falls in 1848, and the nation's first family planning center was opened in Brooklyn. Our state has committed to those ideals and is continuing the push for full women's equality. We've passed laws strengthening women's reproductive health and made paid family leave a reality, because no one should have to choose between their paycheck and caring for a loved one. I want to commend you all for your hard work and persistence through a challenging time that this COVID-19 pandemic has brought. For some of the women being honored this evening, the pandemic meant a change in their role of being defined as an essential worker to keep our community standing and thriving. In the Assembly, I serve as the chair of the Task Force on Women's Issues and a member of the Ways and Means Committee, playing a role in our state budget negotiations. In response to the COVID-19 pandemic, we have been working hard passing emergency legislation to help those in need, including for nursing home patients, renters, homeowners, and small businesses. I'm a proud lifelong advocate for women's rights, human rights, the rights of the LGBTQIA community, and have introduced an Equal Rights Amendment to our New York State Constitution. I proudly passed a bill signed into law requiring breast cancer screenings by tomiocentesis to be covered by insurance companies, a model now being copied and replicated in other states. Some of my greatest mentors have been fearless women, including former Texas Governor Ann Richards, Roe v. Wade attorney Sarah Weddington, And one of my favorite memories in Albany was on the day we passed and codified the Reproductive Health Act into New York State, codifying a woman's right to choose. Additionally, I've introduced an LGBT curriculum bill to educate students on the historic treatment of LGBT individuals. We passed a resolution commending the life of the late Edie Windsor. Sometimes being a woman in politics or any field means that you may have to pave a new road to make inroads to the field that you pursue. As the first Black Congresswoman, Shirley Chisholm, once said, if they don't give you a seat at the table, bring a folding chair. In recognition of Women's History Month, we held a press conference outside my district office on York Avenue as a call to action for the passage of a federal and state equal rights amendment to anchor our rights in the Constitution. You might not know that the equal rights are not explicitly guaranteed to women in our constitutions. It's been 98 years since the first call to action for an equal rights amendment. We were joined by 4 generations who want to see the ERA passed in their lifetime, like Helene Goldfarb, who's 91 and with us this evening, the former president of the Feminist Press. I look forward to continuing to fight for the Equal Rights Amendment in Albany, and I am confident that we will prevail and get it added to the New York State Constitution. The ratification of the Equal Rights Amendment must be our priority. By amending our state's constitution, we will address issues such as pay equity, workplace discrimination, and promoting women in leadership roles. Parity for women should be the law of the land. We have a long way to go to ensure protections for women in our state and across our nation. I would like to now introduce a woman of special distinction who is the recipient of an award this evening. She has a special keynote address for our guests. We're very pleased to have her. Cynthia McCollum is the Senior Vice President of Hospital Administration and has been at Memorial Sloan Kettering Center for over 30 years. Prior to coming to MSK, she worked at Mount Sinai School of Medicine and the John A. Hartford Foundation. She has held a variety of administrative positions at Memorial and is currently administratively responsible for a number of clinical departments. She serves as the MSK representative to the board of the National Comprehensive Cancer Network and serves on their executive committee. Welcome, Cynthia McCollum, and congratulations on your award this evening.
Thank you so much, Assemblymember Seawright. I'd like to join Assemblywoman Seawright in welcoming everybody here tonight and extend my thanks to her for hosting this wonderful event, celebrating so many female leaders in our community. I'm honored to have this opportunity to address each of you who are joining us tonight, and especially tonight's honorees, and also my own New York State Senator, Liz Krueger, my member of Congress, Carol Maloney, and New York's Attorney General, Letitia James. Assemblywoman Seawright asked that I focus my remarks tonight on women in leadership. So I decided to start by looking for quotes from women's leaders. And I Googled the Forbes magazine list of the 100 best quotes of all time about leadership. You can all probably imagine my horror when only 4 women were represented on a list of 100 quotes. And in all honesty, the quotes overall I didn't find terribly enlightening. My favorite was the following: the challenge of leadership is to be strong but not rude, to be kind but not weak, to be bold but not a bully, to be thoughtful but not lazy, be humble but not timid, be proud but not arrogant, and have humor but without folly. That's a pretty good summary, right? But have you ever heard it before? I certainly had not. And you've probably already guessed that its author is a man. His name is Jim Rohn. You may say to yourself, who? Because that's exactly what I did. So I looked him up. He was a motivational speaker in the 60s and 70s, and the only business he led went out of business. So I thought to myself, what does it say when it's a challenge to find inspiring quotes about leadership? Although I do quite like the Shirley Chisholm story. I think it says that leadership is hard to define in a few simple phrases. Leadership is really about action, not words. But leadership does include the creation and maintenance of hope, And I saw a quote from Napoleon Bonaparte about that, interestingly. Clarity of vision, especially in a time of crisis, erring on the side of kindness and compassion while understanding that limits and expectations are necessary, decisiveness even when it is uncomfortable, and maintaining a sense of humor and a sense of humility as a leader. You are ultimately the servant of those you lead. Many of these characteristics are present in both men and women, but historically leadership has been defined not just by its positive traits, but sometimes by less attractive behaviors, which have included historically harassment, bullying, and abuse of power. However, as I thought through the history, these traits are rarely seen in women leaders. Women are by nature often consensus builders and understand the importance of leading by example. It's hard to imagine Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Michelle Obama, or Kamala Harris, to name a few, leading by these less attractive methods. I suspect we would all agree in this time that there is a place for kinder, gentler leadership, and that many women embrace exactly these qualities. Being thoughtful and deliberate doesn't make you weak. You don't have to yell to be decisive. We should all embrace these qualities and use them to be effective leaders. When Assemblywoman Seawright first approached me 13 months ago about speaking at this event in March of 2020, I had barely heard the word coronavirus. Little did I know after the event was canceled on short notice due to its sudden presence in our world and our community, that I would spend the next year living by my words. In April, I was asked to assume the leadership of Memorial Sloan Kettering's coronavirus response effort, known to those of us in the healthcare industry as the Hospital Incident Command System, or HICS for short. After a grueling 6 weeks of the crisis in the early time of it, I took over the HICS leadership at a point where we needed to restore calm, reassure our staff, and manage the next phase of the crisis while other leaders were restoring our core business, which is taking care of our patients with cancer. There was no question that the first order of business was to lead by example. Our frontline staff at this point, those who cared for our patients, especially our COVID patients, or who were otherwise on the front line cleaning, delivering supplies, preparing food, were scared. The virus was still very prevalent, and we were a long way from a vaccine. At some other hospitals, senior executives worked from home, but MSK, we were on site every day. We made rounds and spoke with the staff. We set up support programs to boost morale and help our staff in need. We stayed calm, we communicated, we told staff what we knew, and we told them what we didn't know. When faced with challenges, we made difficult decisions. They weren't always popular, but they were clear, and they were applied consistently to all staff at all levels. And we also spoke of hope, the declining case numbers by the end of May, the promise of a vaccine by fall. Overall, I think our strategy worked. And you will notice perhaps that I keep saying we, not I, because I couldn't have done what I did without a superb team of colleagues, smart, dedicated, relentless in their commitment to our mission. So I think that's my final lesson for this evening, that ultimately leadership is a team sport. I want to congratulate all the leaders who are being honored here tonight. I hope you recognized yourself in some of the descriptions I made about leadership qualities. And I hope that as women, you will recognize in yourselves and in others the very qualities that make you successful and will help promote those qualities in the next generation of young women who will follow us as leaders. Thank you very much for your time tonight.
Thank you so much, Cynthia, for your inspirational words and quotes this evening, and congratulations on your award, and just a special thanks for all that you're doing for the Upper East Side and Yorkville in your role as a key vice president at Memorial Sloan Kettering. And we very much thank you for being with us and delivering those inspiring words this evening. So thank you. And I've been told that we are joined by Congresswoman Carolyn B. Maloney, and I call her America's Congresswoman because she has done so much for us, fighting in Washington for the Second Avenue subway, and has introduced the Equal Rights Amendment every year that she has been in Congress. And she is, one of my favorite quotes of hers is she was at a healthcare hearing in Washington with all men, and she looked across the room and said, "Where are the women?" And so we thank her for all that she does. America's Congresswoman Carolyn B. Maloney.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Assemblywoman Rebecca Seawright, for all of your extraordinary work and for inviting me to speak at your Women's History Month 2021 awards honoring trailblazing women in our community. Thank you for putting this together and honoring them. And happy Women's History Month. And I'm so proud to report that just last week, the House voted to eliminate the time constraint on the Equal Rights Amendment ratification, which means we may actually get this in the Constitution. And in 2020, my Smithsonian National Women's History Museum was signed into law after 20 years of hard work and dedication. I never thought it would be so hard, but I say you can't recognize, if you don't recognize women, you can't empower them. And finally, there will be a museum on the National Mall dedicated to the achievements and hard work of women, everything from all fields, healthcare to science and so forth. And I'm excited to be here with you all virtually to celebrate your achievements. I've worked with many of you over the years for the betterment of our community. Congratulations to Sandrea Coleman of the Homes Isaac Coalition. She has led the way for housing and tenants' rights and has her own organization working on it every day. And Cynthia McCullum, it was beautiful to hear your words as the Senior Vice President of Memorial Sloan Kettering, which is on the cutting edge of cancer research. And I went to meet with you with Rebecca with the PPE and personal protective equipment during the time of COVID that you led us through so brilliantly. And Deputy Inspector Miss Melissa Edgar keeps our neighborhood safe at the helm of the 19th precinct. We're so proud of women moving up in all of these fields. And at 106, Dr. Shirley Sussman is committed to the sexual health of women. There are so many more honorees that I wish I had the time to personally acknowledge, but I look forward to hearing from all of you. And tonight is a night to listen and to hear your great achievements. Thank you and congratulations. I just want to end by saying that help is on the way. President Biden has centralized the production of our vaccines. We hope to have enough out for everybody by the end of May. And we're moving very quickly in that realm. We're in a race against the virus. We have to get out in front and get everybody vaccinated before we can really open up our communities again. And we have a 1.9 trillion that we voted for in the American Relief Plan. Roughly 60 billion is coming to the city of New York, and over 350 billion went through the committee I represent and chair now, the Oversight and Reform Committee. And that was for cities and states, 12 billion to our state, over 6 billion to our city, and many direct funds for unemployment, direct funds to people. Help is on the way. I'm here to work for you, serve you, and I want to applaud and honor the women that Rebecca is honoring today. Thank you for giving me a few moments to say hello and bring a brief update. Thank you so much, Rebecca, for all of your extraordinary hard work. Thank you.
Thank you, Congresswoman. I know you're busy and we appreciate so much you're joining us this evening and all that you're doing in Washington to get us that federal relief money. We need you now more than ever, and we can't thank you enough for your continued leadership and all that you're doing to fight for New York State in Washington. We're now going to recognize our 2020 Women of Distinction. Last year, due to the pandemic, it was rescheduled to tonight. So we will lead off with Julia Fan. She is a lifelong advocate for gender equality. Julia's career has focused on women's and girls' empowerment and issues globally. She's the co-founder of Safer NYC, a nonprofit dedicated to engaging men in the movement to end street harassment. Currently, Julia is the Knowledge and Program Manager for Women Strong International, where she works to share knowledge of what works in the women's empowerment and international development community. Our next honoree is Jeanette Gautier. In our community, Jeanette started volunteering at Church of the Epiphany's Dinner for the Homeless in 1988 and became its volunteer coordinator in 1995. She says, "I love it more now than I did when I started." Wow, that's wonderful. It puts life in perspective and gives me a purpose that I hadn't expected. Our next honoree is Ruth Halbert. She's represented the 76th Assembly District on the New York State Democratic State Committee for over 30 years. During her tenure, she was also chosen to serve on the New York State Democratic Executive Committee on behalf of all of Manhattan. As a longtime resident of the Upper East Side, Ruth's history of community activism began in the early 1970s when Hunter College threatened to get rid of their famous elementary and high school campus. In order to expand the college, Ruth's work in the community led to her becoming executive director of Assemblyman Mark Allen Siegel's district office. In that role, she worked with community boards 8 and 6 and as a liaison to his district's local organizations. Zena Kaufman is our next 2020 honoree. She's had a distinguished career as an executive in pharmaceutical and medical device quality systems and is a recognized thought leader in global pharmaceutical quality. Ms. Kaufman is on the board of the Sisterhood of Shalom to build trust, respect, and relationships between Muslim and Jewish women and teenage girls. Standing together, committed to stand up for one another, educate one another about our faith, our cultural practices, engage in social action, and work to end acts of hate for all human beings. And we know her also from her great work as a valuable member of the League of Women Voters fighting for election reforms in New York State. Louise Merriman, prior to retirement, served as the administrative director of clinical nutrition at New York Presbyterian Hospital. In her role, she was passionate about the best and safest care of patients. Her team of registered dietitians at New York Presbyterian were recognized nationally for significant contributions in improving awareness and treatment of malnutrition in hospitalized patients. In her spare time, she supports the programs and services of the American Cancer Society and the American Heart Association. Anne Meshery holds the position of Director of In-Park Events at New York City's Carl Schurz Park Conservancy here on the Upper East Side. In this capacity, she is responsible for producing the Summer Sounds concert series, Sunset Film Festival, Gracie Square Art Show, and the Holiday Tree Lighting and Caroling Celebration. And we've missed so many of these events during COVID. We're really looking forward and to them coming back. She considers herself a lifelong commitment to community service as a thank you to America that provided the opportunity for a little immigrant girl to achieve success beyond her wildest dreams. Her family acquired American citizenship when she was 15 years old, and she went to work as a clerk typist at the age of 18. From there, she rose through the ranks of advertising and retired as a senior vice president of an ad agency. Bobby Slovneski enjoyed an absorbing and successful business career, first as medical advertising copywriter, and then for 30 years as founder and CEO of a Manhattan-based media medical marketing company. Bobby serves as vice president of the Roosevelt Island Historical Society, researching, writing, and editing the digital publication, which is now in its 6th year. She has unearthed and developed dozens of previously overlooked topics of Roosevelt Island's valued history and hopes to expand their reach by compiling them into a widely available book of Roosevelt Island vignettes, and works closely with Judy Birdie, who is a dear friend. Our next honoree, Linda Smith, after working for 40 years in an advertising media company, Linda retired in July of 2018. During her retirement, she has spent her time volunteering at a nursing home and in the office of Assemblymember Rebecca Seawright. She finds enjoyment in getting to interact with some interesting people, and she really adds so much value to our community office. She's been with us now for almost 3 years, helping constituents that walk in through the front door with a patient ear and a helping hand, and we thank Linda very much. Our next honoree, Lisa Spadali, is an RN and a graduate of Hunter College School of Nursing. She's been an employee of the Visiting Nurse Service of New York City since 2002. She travels to take care of people on the Upper East Side. Lisa said that her patients are so happy to recover in their own homes. The best part of nursing for Lisa are her patients. Lisa lives on Roosevelt Island with her college-age son. And we are being joined by our state senator, Liz Krueger. Let's just check and see if Liz is in the Zoom room. I know we are competing with a very, very important Community Board 8 meeting this evening on some very important, hotly contested topics. So Liz will be joining us shortly. But I just want to move on to the 2021 Women of Distinction, and we will break for Senator Krueger whenever we get notice that she has joined us. Our first 2021 Woman of Distinction actually came to see me in the district office, and I was so impressed with the agenda of Community Board 8's Women's Issues. Gail Barron has devoted her life to community and public service. She recently completed 3 years as first vice chair of Community Board 8, where she currently co-chairs the Women and Families Committee, addressing long-term care costs, child care challenges, and food insecurity. Ms. Barron served as president of the Long Island City Partnership and was the executive director of the Long Island City Business Improvement District, which she founded. Our next honoree, Sondrea Coleman, is an activist and an organizer in her community. She co-founded the Holmes Isaacs Coalition to assist and educate NYCHA residents citywide. She co-founded and is one of the co-hosts of the One NYCHA podcast, which highlights public housing issues and everyday politics. Sondrea is also an organizer of the Upper East Side Black Lives Matter vigil at Carl Schulz Park, which attendees have been gathering nightly since June 2nd, 2020, in the wake of the murder of Mr. George Floyd. She also participated in a press conference, Toys for Tots with Us, back in December. She is also the co-founder and co-host of the Power Talk TV show. She has her own gospel radio show, and she was appointed to Manhattan Community Board in May of 2020 and is co-chair of the new Social Justice Committee. Our next honoree does a lot to keep us safe on the Upper East Side, Deputy Inspector Melissa Eager. Deputy Inspector Melissa Eager is the commanding officer of NYPD's 19th precinct. Eager most recently led the 122nd precinct, which covers the South Shore of Staten Island. She began her NYPD career officer in Central Brooklyn, later being promoted to sergeant while working in Northern Brooklyn. She is the chief inspector here on the Upper East Side for the 19th precinct, and it's great to see a woman in that role. So thank you, Chief Inspector. Our next honoree, Aisha Elusivzov, is a 20-year resident of Roosevelt Island and is an active volunteer in her community. She is Manhattan Association Chair for Girl Scouts of Greater New York, a delegate in Troop 3001 and 3244 leader. She is passionate about her work to build girls of courage, confidence, and character that make the world a better place. And we've had this event in person in prior years, and we've served Girl Scout cookies from Roosevelt Island. I'm sorry that we won't be able to serve those tonight, but we did order a bunch to give out here at the office. She's a member of the Roosevelt Island Garden Club and works closely with others in her community to promote zero waste practices. She worked with her neighbors to help launch, promote, and sustain the food scrap drop-off on Roosevelt Island, along with other environmental programs and practices. Betsy Feist was born and raised on the Upper East Side, has spent most of her adult life here. She is currently on the executive committee of the East River Democratic Club. She has always worked to help make our neighborhood a place where we can all thrive through advocacy, by helping community members find support in solving their problems, and by such things as organizing forums at which community members can hear from and question our representatives. And I know that she's also an avid water enthusiast and loves water aerobics when we're not in the middle of COVID. Wendy McIver is a lifelong resident of New York City, despite her background in biomedical research methodology, finance, and law. Wendy would never have believed that she would have been a community activist. Since then, Wendy has worked on the trading floor of the American Stock Exchange, advocated for the educational rights of children with disabilities, advised teachers about including different types of learners in the mainstream classroom, and served as a caregiver to beloved family members. Wendy champions measures to reverse climate change pollution and is currently a public member of Community Board 8. Under her pen name, she has written and published 3 romance novels. Dorian Messier is the proud owner of Dorian Seafood Market, located at 1580 York Avenue on the Upper East Side of New York. She and her daughter participated in a press conference that we had back last fall for the anniversary of the women's suffrage movement. Dorian has made it both her and her shop's mission to be a charitable and contributing member of the community by continually being a sponsor of the Carl Schurz Park Conservancy, Candlelighters NYC, Small Business Mentors NYC, City of Hope, Mount Sinai Hospital, and the American Cancer Society. But most importantly, Dorian considers her most important job being a mother to her son, Chris, and her daughter, Stephanie. Our next honoree, Josephine Napolitano, is the daughter of 2 immigrants and the first generation to graduate from college. She is the owner of Arturo's Restaurant on York Avenue and East 85th Street. She is honored to serve the community and considers Yorkville and its residents an extension of her home and family. Peggy Price is a journalist, editor, author, and community activist. She has written for prominent publications such as the Daily News, Newsday, and Investors Business Daily. She is also active in her community. Ms. Price promotes women's issues through her role as co-chair of the Women and Families Committee of Community Board 8. She also is the author of Single Women and Money, How to Live on Your Income, co-authored with financial advisor Jill Gianola, due to be published this fall by Rowman and Littlefield. Gabrielle Ross is an intern in our office, accomplished programmer and app developer. She's proficient in multiple coding languages and a high school sophomore at the local Brearley School. She has 7 years of experience in robotics, virtual and augmented reality systems, and radio telescope technology. She won the Judges' Choice Award in an Ivy League all-women's competition on coding. And I know anytime we have a computer question in the office, we go straight to Gabrielle. She has a passion for computing math and translating Latin, participates in Tech for Main Stage Set Construction, is a team member of the varsity basketball team and varsity lacrosse, and is an avid backpacker and volunteers at her time in service to the constituents in our office. And we have been joined by our State Senator Liz Krueger, who is also the chair of the Finance Committee in the New York State Senate. And boy, are we fortunate to have our senator fighting for us in Albany. She's someone that I greatly admire and look to for advice. And she's always just right on with the issues in Albany. So thank you, Senator Krueger, for joining us this evening. think we need to unmute.
Got it. Hi there. Hi, everyone. Sorry, I'm jumping in late. I was at another community meeting, which now means you just bop from Zoom box to Zoom box to Zoom box, where I like to describe our lives on Hollywood Squares every day of our lives now. Rebecca, thank you for inviting me. As always, it's, you know, you're so good at reminding us all as women that we stand on the shoulders of so many great women before us, and that there are so many women in our lives of every generation that are making a difference. And sometimes it's hard and sometimes it's fun. But I appreciate so much that you never let a day go by without reminding people of what the role of women needs to be in our society, why it makes a difference if women are at the table of power, wherever that table might be, why it makes a difference for our sons and daughters when they see us as role models in every imaginable type of career path, and why we need to be there for the generation coming after us, because each of us can name, and I'm seeing many different ages in these squares. I love that. Those of us who are older can name the women who were our role models. And there are some, looks like high school students here tonight, and hopefully they have found some role models and mentors. And if not, check out some of these boxes for the work you can do, because there's so much to be done. There is so much to be done, and you have to give back in every way that you can. And I guess the term pay it forward, which I don't know whether it came with the movie or everybody just learned it from the movie, but the concept is wonderful, and that we need to be stronger as a society, basically saying we're going to help everybody, because that gets us the kind of society we want to live in. And you never know when you're the one who needs help a little bit later. So thank you very much, Rebecca. I so appreciate having a chance to speak for a few minutes and to see all the faces of people, some of whom I know and some of whom I don't know. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Senator Krueger, and tell us the latest on the budget now that we have your ear here.
Wow. So looks like we're not going to get a budget passed until next week, but it is possible we still make the deadline. So we won't be in Albany Monday to deal with budget because it's still Passover, but then Tuesday, Wednesday is a target goal. We could get done. Rebecca knows what I'm talking about. One of those really long nights that really stretches into Thursday, but we have this great trick in Albany. If you don't ever check out, Tuesday, Wednesday can just keep going. And so you're thinking, hey, it's Thursday at 11 a.m. and I've been here 24 hours, and yet the clock is still reporting it's Wednesday. Because we have this magic way through parliamentary procedure to stop the clock and get ourselves done by the April 1st deadline. I suspect that's what will happen this year. The issues are much less complicated than they were before the federal government came through with a significant amount of money for the state and for the city and for other major counties around the state. That are making a huge difference in these still very difficult times. So we have, federal unemployment supplemental benefits continuing. We have increased federal funds through programs for low-income families and children through programs like SNAP and child care credits. We have a child care credit, which will technically take about 50% of the children out of poverty in this country, although it's only for a year and a half. So I worry about the date when we're supposed to put them back into poverty another year and a half later. So there's we got federal money for the MTA. We have federal money to support the state in the infrastructure work that we need to do, correlated both to COVID and to the damage that's been done by the economic slowdown. So we have real money to invest in helping the restaurants get up and on their feet, helping people who couldn't afford to pay their rent, perhaps for the last 12 months, to get supplemental emergency rent money. That's state money and federal money. So we're doing a lot of work looking carefully at what the federal funding we are getting or are eligible for is, figuring out how we can maximize the use of and spend it correctly, because some of the federal money actually says, well, we're divvying it up the way we think, but if some states aren't using it, we'll make it available to the states who are. So I can guarantee you, New York State, given our numbers crisis and our expensive rents, we're not getting the share that we need of emergency supplemental rent monies. But if we move the first batch out early, there are states who still don't know what a multifamily dwelling is, and they won't be drawing down that money, but we can get in there faster and try to get it. We also are seeing a huge increase in our Medicaid and healthcare reimbursements for the next year and a half. And I want to give credit where I believe credit is due, not to a woman this time, but to this guy named Chuck Schumer, who happily, because of all of our work, particularly in Georgia, made sure that we had a US Senate with Chuck Schumer as the majority leader, and that Chuck Schumer as the majority leader has been doing an amazing job moving money out to the states where it's desperately needed, and never forgetting his home state, I think, in any kind of work that he does. So of course it was Nancy Pelosi in the House, Carolyn Maloney, our Congresswoman, pushing the exact same bills through the House. Ironically, it was easier to get it done in the House, but because of the margin of error that we don't have in the Senate. And we were all waited with our bated breath, but it was just enormous to see the difference when Biden came in, and then the Senate went close enough to blue to get Chuck Schumer as the majority leader. And it's really impacting, to the positive, the state budget realities, even though we still worry about the out years. And we are still making a passionate and controversial plea to wealthier New Yorkers who have done well during these times to not be frightened away when we ask you for a small increase in your taxes. I say that's controversial because I got rich people calling me every day telling me they're mad at me, and like, that's okay. But I try to explain why we need a society that provides for all. And when people say, well, why are you taxing to the wealthy? And we're talking about people who have wages of over $1 million a year as a single, or $2 million a year as a couple. So if your actual wage income is that high, give me a call and we can talk about the tax proposals. Otherwise, it has zero impact on you. But if we live in a society that is so unequal in basic income and services and programs, we all pay a price for that. And our children pay a price for that. So I know it's the right thing to do, but it's a hard one to convince people of. And when people say to me, you're proposing an increased tax on wealthier New Yorkers, I actually respond seriously. Well, it wouldn't be very practical to try to get it out of the poor New Yorkers, would it? It wouldn't. And frankly, we need the help. We need to make sure we have a quality education system and a quality infrastructure and clean water and clean air and a functioning public transit system and safe streets. Because if not, who the hell wants to live here? No one. No one will want to come here to start their businesses or to be able to continue their businesses. So I think it's important to realize government needs to make tough choices all the time. And you've let me go on too long, Rebecca. So cut me off, mute me before I get, I start to make people take signs outside and protest with me.
No, it's great to have you, Senator Krueger, and great to have you fighting for us in Albany. We're in good hands, and we're so fortunate to have our state senator as chair of the Finance Committee in the state Senate, the most coveted position, and the third, I think she's been called the third most powerful person in Albany, but in my opinion, she is the number one power person in Albany. And again, we're just so fortunate to have her representing the Upper East Side and in Albany in that position as chair of the Finance. And as a strong feminist, she is the sponsor of the Equal Rights Amendment and debated codifying Roe versus Wade. And the list just goes on and on and on of what Senator Krueger has done for us at the state capitol. So thank you for taking time to joining us this evening. We appreciate it very much. And we're going back to our honorees. Dr. Mini Cambodge is the Chief Medical Epidemiologist of Infection Control at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center. Members of this program work to prevent healthcare-associated infections. She's part of the developing and spreading among patients and staff. She is actively engaged in several research projects on various aspects of epidemiology, and she is doing phenomenal work and needed more than ever, especially during this pandemic. So thank you, Doctor. We're also joined by another honoree, Dr. Catherine Teets Grimm, is a general pediatrician and a child abuse pediatrician. She currently has a private practice on Roosevelt Island and works as a child abuse pediatrician in the Mount Sinai Medical Center. I got to know her because she's the physician for the New York Children's Center on East 70th Street. And we thank Dr. Grimm for all your dedicated work. Andrea Jackson is a talent management and acquisition professional in our community on Roosevelt Island. She is the vice president of the Roosevelt Island Senior Association, which is a very important organization, and we thank her for her dedication. She has our next honoree is Serena Sabet. She was born and raised on the Upper East Side. Serena is passionate and a dedicated 18-year-old who's currently a senior at the Spence School. She has worked on a variety of community service projects that benefit homeless people and underprivileged children around the world. She first started ice skating when she was 4 years old at Woolman Rink. When she first heard of Mayor de Blasio's sudden closures at the rink and at Lasker Rink in an attempt to cut off all Trump-related organizations, she created a petition protesting the closure. And due to her hard work, Mayor de Blasio overturned his decision to let the skaters finish their season. Her work saved over 250 jobs and kept the rinks open for hundreds of figure skaters and hockey players to continue the sports they love so much. Our next honoree keeps us all informed. Jean Strauss is the president of Strauss News, publisher of Our Town, our beloved paper here on the Upper East Side, and of 16 other local newspapers in New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. Early in her career, she worked as an editorial assistant at the White House News Summary, stringer for the Associated Press, and program director for All Talk radio station WMCA. She took Strauss News from 4 to 19 community publications in print and online, and under her watch, the publications have won numerous awards for reporting, advertising, and design excellence. She's spoken about women in the workplace, running a business, and the future of local news. Pick up your copy of Our Town. It's a wonderful paper, and the box gets empty quickly because it's so popular and keeps us well informed. So thank you, Jean, for your hard work. Sherry Weiner is the former mayor and township attorney of Livingston, New Jersey. She's a member of Community Board 8, where she serves as co-chair of the Voting Reform Task Force. She is currently a member of the executive committee of LPAC, Tri-State Maxed Out Women, and the Women's Political Caucus of New Jersey. She's passionate about getting more women in political process and getting more women in elected office. Julia Wisniewski is a civic-minded student dedicated to advocating for social justice and affecting positive change. For the past 3.5 years, she has worked to address teen mental health issues and eliminate the stigma surrounding mental illness. He led a team of peers in drafting legislation to provide all New York City public schools with full-time, Doe-funded social workers, and to integrate mental health into the pre-existing health curriculum. She's even been a guest speaker at one of our Town Hall Tuesdays, speaking on the importance of mental health services in our school system. Dr. Shirley Sussman is a sex therapist based in New York City. She was supervised through her graduate dissertation by Margaret Mead. She will soon be 107 years old. In the 1960s, she studied sex therapy under Masters and Johnson, the inspiration for the Showtime series Masters of Sex. And she participated in our press conference for the celebration of the 100th anniversary of the suffrage movement and what it would mean for her in her lifetime to see the Equal Rights Amendment passed. So I want to congratulate all of our honorees this evening. Thank you for joining us. We stand on the shoulders of the women who came before us. And I want to thank you to all of the professional and activist women for your hard work and accomplishments in your respective fields. We are inspired by your activism, in awe of your courage, encouraged by your persistence, and emboldened by your resolve. These generations of women tonight continue to make the fight for equal rights possible. I want to thank you for joining us. As always, our office is just a call, email, or a visit away. We're located at York Avenue and 79th Street, right next to the post office. Every Thursday, we have a free mask and hand sanitizer giveaway. Twice a month, we sponsor a free housing clinic. So help us to spread the word. And we thank you and congratulate you. Keep up the great work. And please have a good night. Thank you all. Stay safe.